Aether Vial is a staple of Merfolk decks. It is consistently run as a 4 of a Merfolk list. Aether Vial is run because Merfolk is not very mana efficient. We have a lot of 2-drops that can be clunky by sitting in our hand. Aether Vial allows us to empty our hand of Merfolk faster. Yet Aether Vial has many different tricks, some being more known than others. In this video, I will be going over the most common uses of Aether Vial. So most of you know that Aether Vial allows you to put your creatures into play at flash speed, and unless your opponent uses a stifle effect on your Aether Vial trigger, the creatures you bring in will be uncounterable since they never hit the stack. Let's say you want to be able to Aether Vial a creature with mana value of 2, like Lord of Atlantis, when your Aether Vial is on 2 charge counters, but you also want to keep ticking up Aether Vial for a subtlety, but the Aether Vial was tapped because you vowed something on your opponent's end step. There is something you can do to keep ticking your Vial up while putting your Lord of Atlantis into play. After your untap step, Aether Vial triggers, asking if you want a charge counter or not. Before the trigger resolves, Vial in your Lord of Atlantis. Then you can tick your Vial up. You are not casting your creatures with Aether Vial because you are putting them into play. This means that you don't have to reveal a card or pay 3 with Silvergill Adept. Yet, if you Vial in a Tidekeeper, you cannot pay the kicker cost because you can only pay the kicker cost when casting Tidekeeper. And if you Vial Tidekeeper into play, you are never actually casting it. If your opponent plays Archmage's Charm to take control of your Aether Vial, you can tap Aether Vial in response. You don't need to be able to put anything into play to tap your Vial. When they gain control of your Aether Vial, it will be tapped. When your opponent plays a burn spell that deals just enough damage to kill the targeted creature, you can Vial on a Lord to save that creature, when the burn spell is still on the stack. Aether Vial is very good versus Liliana of the Veil. If you have one card in your hand and your opponent ticks up their Liliana of the Veil, in response you can Aether Vial that card into play as long as it meets Aether Vial's restrictions. You will not have to discard anything to Liliana. You can do the same for any Thoughtseize effects. If Liliana down ticks and you have a single creature in play and you don't want to lose that creature, you can respond to the Liliana down tick using your Aether Vial to put into play a less relevant creature and then sacrifice that creature to the Liliana. Aether Vial can put a surprise blocker into play to kill an attacking creature. You can Vial in another creature to give Swaylun indestructible if she would be killed from lethal damage. Once one of your creatures are targeted with a spell or ability the opponent controls, you cannot activate Aether Vial to put Swaylun into play to make them pay Ward 1. This also applies for Kira. You might want to side out Aether Vial versus decks with Artifact Hate, like Kulligan's Command, or really aggressive decks when you are on the play. Yet, Aether Vial is typically Merfolk's best play on turn 1. Late in the game, they will become irrelevant draws, but because of all the ways to utilize Aether Vial, it makes it worth a dead draw that might happen here and there. I hope you found this information useful. Feel free to like and subscribe. Comment below how many of these tricks you knew. I hope to see you in the next video.